Hello everyone. It looks like my last video got lots of views, at least for my channel. It goes to show you just how far sarcasm can get you, as long as you target green owls with your scorn. But I did want to talk about a little bit of a more serious aspect of language learning, because while I don't think Duolingo is by any means a great program, there are definitely much worse things you can do with your time. Like, I didn't really think this. Oh, here's one. Like, it's probably a worse usage of your time if you're watching TV and you demand the ref on TV give you an explanation of just how the hell that could possibly be offside. You know, my favorite part of that joke is it works in hockey, football, and the other version of football, the one you didn't think of immediately when you first heard me say the word football. Yeah, that's 3 fan bases in one. How often do you get that kind of return on investment with a joke? Well, actually, I guess all jokes have a bad return on investment. Anyway, yeah, the point is, because of the Duolingo video that I just made, I've gotten a lot of new subscribers to my channel now. So instead of disappointing you by making extremely low effort videos later, I figured I'll just get that out of the way now. You'll get this extremely low effort video now. What can I say? I give, and I continue to give the same nothing that you have already received before I gave it. That's how nothing works. Anyway, I'm assuming if you watch the Duolingo video, you probably have some kind of interest in learning a foreign language, or you're a masochist. That's not an exclusive or, by the way. I'm just going to assume you're both. Okay, but on the assumption that you actually do want to learn a foreign language of some kind, become fluent in one, I figure I'll give you the most important aspect as far as I can tell. And you can clearly trust me. I'm on a YouTube video, and I'm not charging you for a book. You know, expert status confirmed. Anyway, the most important aspect of a foreign language isn't memorizing the vocabulary, nor is it learning how to speak the certain sounds that don't exist in your native language. In my opinion, it is being able to think from a different perspective. So I'm wearing my Colorado Avalanche hat today. This would be like if I could think from the perspective of a Detroit Red Wings fan. And yeah, that's pretty hard. Anyway, now, because I'm so often sarcastic, and you can see that even now, it's hard for me to ever really talk about anything with complete sincerity. So let me take the time to clarify that I'm actually serious when I say this. See, differences in languages aren't a simple substitution. It's not like French is the same language as Russian, just that, you know, French grabs all the vowels and Russia is annexing all the consonants. No, it's not just that. It's you can't just exchange the right labels and have it suddenly work. Google Translate actually is an excellent proof of this point. Everyone, well, I mean, everyone from Colorado, at least. We've all at some point eaten brownies that hippie guy got from Boulder. And then we spent the next 4.5 hours using Google Translate to convert the Gettysburg Address into, you know, Swahili, and then Chinese and Korean, Spanish, German, Czech. And then we finally switch it back to English and laugh because 7 years ago has magically turned into 420 and 69s ago. Nice. The distortion of language that comes about because of Google Translate, though, is because it's not just a substitution of labels that works here. See, the truth is that the differences in language actually indicate a difference in thought. And these aren't just tiny little differences. These are completely different points of view. See, we categorize the world differently depending on the language that we use to describe the world. So differences in perception come out in our speech. Let me give you just a simple example. So as you could tell from before, I live in Colorado, have the apps, all that. And Colorado joins up in one spot with New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona. It's a point they call the Four Corners because they're four corners. Very imaginative title. Anyway, in the Colorado section of the Four Corners area, about an hour's drive away from that specific point on the map, there is a national park. It's called Mesa Verde National Park. And Mesa Verde is Spanish. It stands for super expensive, unrealistic entry fee. No, not really. What most people here in America, at least, Mesa comes from the word for table, and verde means green. So Mesa Verde, that reverses the order of noun and adjective, because that would be green table in English, but it's table green in Spanish. So in English, we always list colors before the noun. Spanish always does it the other way around. Why is that? It's not just convention. It's not like we just magically decided we're always going to do this. If it didn't matter, if we didn't think on it, and it didn't matter to the way we processed ideas, there wouldn't be one way of doing it. You could do it in either order, no one would care. But instead, we have specific ways that we have to do it. So the reason in English we always have a blue ball on a green table and never a ball blue on a table green is because the mind that uses English thinks of the color, and then we think of what the thing is. And just as it feels weird for an English speaker to say a ball blue is sitting on a table green, a Spanish speaker would never think of una verde mesa. It's even hard for me to say it in that order because I'm used to the Spanish. See, in Spanish, you always think of the object first and then the attributes that go along with that object. So this becomes even more pronounced when you consider a different language like Latin, for example. An English sentence, with some exceptions for poetry usually, we almost always have the form of subject, verb, object. Broadly speaking, very loose organization of terms here. We start by stating the subject, what the sentence is about. Then we say what the subject is doing. And finally, we conclude, what are the means, or where's the location, or those other objects around it that impact the subject. Latin, on the other hand, goes subject, object, verb. So in Latin, we start with the subject just like English, but then we go to the means, or the objects, the locations. Then we finally say, this is what we're doing, right? So to give a specific example, in English, I would say the woman is in the city. And we have the subject being the woman. And then we ask, what is the woman doing? The action, in this case, the woman is. So is existing. That's what that is short for. And then we say, well, what's the location of where is this activity occurring? It's in the city. So there we have the subject, verb, object. In Latin, this same sentence would be in the form femina in urbe est. Literally, this is woman in the city is. Well, technically, I said the city, but it's really woman in city is, because Latin doesn't have a definite or indefinite article. They're just the nouns, no articles like the or an. That's a different topic. I don't want to get sidetracked on that too far. The point here is just that when you think of something in Latin, you have to prioritize the subject, then the object, and then the verb, not the subject, the verb, and then the object, like we do in English. So what's the upshot with all this? Why do I even bring this up? Well, because if you want to learn a foreign language, if you want to be fluent in a foreign language, you have to learn how to think like the native speaker does. And the way to do that is, in my mind, to take on the persona. I have to be very clear by what I mean by this, because there's an epidemic of people faking dissociative identity disorder on social media. So let me be extremely clear here. This is not disassociation. This is more like if you've ever performed a play, like in school or something, where you take on the role of a character while you're on the stage. So if you are a good actor, you literally become the character you're playing. for the confines of the stage. You're not like disassociating into that character. You're never going to confuse your identity with that of the character you're performing. But it's the same type of thing. You're taking on that persona. You've got that mindset. You filter your perceptions through that lens, and then you behave accordingly. So, for example, using Latin, I have to use the subject, object, verb order of sentences because it literally feels wrong to do it differently. And the same in Spanish when it comes to the nouns and the adjectives. It just feels wrong for me to say el blanco gato, just as it feels wrong for me to say in English the cat white. It just feels wrong because I have to internalize the pattern of thinking, the way, the method goes in, and then my brain needs to process it in that order. So that's all well and good. But how does one go about doing that? I don't think there's necessarily any one correct way to gain this technique, but I will say this. I believe it starts with empathy. You have to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is thinking in the language that you're trying to become fluent in. And this is easiest to do, for me at least, when I talk to people who are native speakers of that language. Because talking to people, you automatically are in a relationship with them. And I don't mean a romantic relationship by that, but everyone you talk with, everyone you interact with, has by necessity a relationship with you. And empathy is grounded in relationships between people. Now, you might be extremely shy. You might be an extreme introvert. That's fine. The second best way, at least for me, might be your best way. That is through getting as much input as you can. So you're learning about the culture. You're learning about the language by experiencing it. You read it, you listen to it, you see it in movies, you get tactile with it, feel signs, engaging as many senses as you can. The more of your sensory input that you can use in the process, the more your brain can internalize it. So you won't do that very well by just memorizing lists of words, not unless you're, INTJ, or look up what that means. My point is simply this: the more you can internalize and view the world through the perspective of the person whose language you're trying to learn, the easier it will be to become fluent in that language. And again, none of this requires that you give up your own identity or that you appropriate a different culture as if you are part of that culture. Now, this is you learning alternate perspectives so that you can empathize with a different way of picturing the world, which then subjectively allows you to feel certain patterns of language that just are correct. At that point, the other things, the vocabulary, the pronunciation, that sort of stuff, will follow after you get to that mindset. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the topic. Like and subscribe, or ignore me, whatever you wish. I'm not demanding. Either way, I hope you have a wonderful day.